Prosperity is a herbal remedy that has been naturally designed to nourish the prostate gland. Prosperity uses a combination of leaves, roots, and barks to create a tincture designed to nourish your prostate gland. It also will assist in prostate-related issues such as erectile dysfunction, swollen prostates, and problems related to the passage of urine. Call or WhatsApp 728-8289, 728-8289 and get your bottle today. Prosperity.
When I am dead, wrap the mantle of the red, the black and the green around me. For in the new life I shall rise up with God's grace and blessing to lead the millions of the heights and the triumph that you well know. Look for me in a world when there's a storm. Look for me all around you. For with God's grace I shall come back with countless millions of black men and women who have died in America, those who have died in the West Indies, and those who have died in Africa to aid you in the fight for liberty, freedom, and life.
Yes, royal family, blessed love, we glorify the life giver and the keeper of life. Negus and Agas, Emperor Haile Selassie I is to be exalted. Of course, we welcome you to the International Flavor, the Universal Spice Radio Anu, definitely also premiering on Radio Anu TV, telling you truth, true vision. Honorable Priest Isaac, definitely honored to be in your presence at this moment. And what we have for you this evening is really somewhat of a continuation of that discussion that we've been having as it relates to Haile Selassie, even on the scriptural level. But I think this evening we're going more on a geopolitical level, really to address a concern that an individual that listens to our program from time to time would have had. I was checking out the comments in the previous premiere that we had when we were speaking of Haile Selassie's presence in the Bible, and that was the second part. And there was a comment by a brother, I would believe, that goes by the name or the acronym of VAC. Or VAC, VAC, VAC. I do not know what VARC stands for, but the brother or sister, it could be a he or she, I'm not too sure, no disrespect whatsoever, was concerned about a statement we made as it relates to Haile Selassie crushing Freemasonry. So I decided that we would address that this evening, and I hope that the individuals that may need to know more about that concept there about Haile Selassie crushing Freemasonry will pay keen attention this evening. Now again, to paraphrase the concern that the brother or sister had, they were saying that this is the foolishness. This is their words. This is the foolishness that Garvey is talking about or speaking about. As I said, I'm paraphrasing. And it is about Haile Selassie crushing, and they put crush or crushing, whatever it was, paraphrasing again, in inverted commas, and Freemasonry. Then they went on to make a statement similar to Haile Selassie being a part of the very same organizations that I'm talking about, he crushed, really. Now, what I'm saying, family, I'm going to be straight off here. Of course, this is not no tyrannical thing here. And of course, we are very open to individuals' concerns, obviously, and individuals who may not really see something the way that we see it. Now, if a person doesn't understand, because Haile Selassie crushed Freemason, I'm getting to all of that. Just give me a moment. Now, if you do not comprehend fully what we are saying, it's obvious for sure that we have a good comprehension of the subject area. That's for sure. So even if you have a a different point of view. To jump on stage and talking about this is foolishness. So who you, I mean, come on. And then trying to align the foolishness with some concern that Brother Garfield has. Now, where did that come from? No, I'm very serious, family. So in the same light of addressing the literal subject, I'm also going to definitely address it with that level of concern. I will consider it ignorance to some degree. Because again, this is not religion that we're speaking of. Most individuals, when they hear about, Christ crushing the wicked, it's this, this fantastic thing busting out the sky and coming down and all the wicked face in the dust and all of that kind of stuff. We're talking geopolitically here. We're talking history here. We're talking reality here. So I'm going to lay it on the table as clear as I can, keeping in mind where we sealed up in the other programs as we were speaking of Haile Selassie again in the scripture. Now, one of the main things we highlighted, and I'm only beginning, I want you to listen to me good. This is going to take a little time. I'm only beginning where we sealed up. I'm only beginning on a scriptural biblical level, but then we're going straight into geopolitics. We're going straight into history. Undeniable. Who crushed Freemasonry / white supremacy? Now, again, we were speaking of the 10 toes that Daniel chapter 2 highlights. I do not want to go over that whole reasoning on Daniel chapter 2 and Daniel chapter 7. In fact, the 2 previous programs of the Tiger's Nest that we did, we spent a lot of time on Daniel chapter 2 and Daniel chapter 7. But again, in a nutshell, 2 and 7, although they're expressed in a different way. One is the dream of Nebuchadnezzar, and one is the vision of Daniel. And Nebuchadnezzar's dream shows a statue that has different body parts, different metals for its body parts. And the vision of Daniel has 4 beasts, all in various formation: lion, a leopard, bear, with wings, 4 heads, and ribs in the mouth, different things, not the regular leopard, not the regular lion. This bear not behaving like the regular bear. And then there's this beast, no one even knows exactly what kind of beast this is. Has about 10 horns and all of these different things. And we clearly showed, without a shadow of a doubt, whether you believe in Bible or not, without a shadow of a doubt, that prophecy of Daniel 2 and 7 is clear as it comes down the line of history from the kingdom of Babylon, taken over by the kingdom of the Medo-Persia people, then taken over, Medo-Persian people taken over by the Greece, or the Greeks, taken over by Greece, the Greeks, and then the Greeks taken over by Rome. And it is this that leads us into the AD time, So let's understand this. We showed, and most of you know this narrative, those of you who are Adventists. This is something that Adventists preach. This is not something I make up, This is not something we unraveled. This is knowledge you find in different books. How many of you have read the Sunday Law book, the little white flat book? It talks about this. And to me, it's precise. And other books, especially again from the Adventist world, speaks about the beasts, the 4 beasts in the vision. So Rome now, historically again, was made up of 10 kingdoms. And this is why the feet, which is the end product of the statue in Daniel 2, had 10 toes. Well, everybody have 10 toes. Well, not everyone. No disrespect to anyone who may have lost a toe or have something extra. No mocking you at all. But you know how the human being was designed. It was designed to have 10 toes. It just so happened that the dream of Nebuchadnezzar just coincides with the 10 kingdoms, because the feet of clay and iron, mingled with clay and iron, not only represents the 10 original kingdoms of Rome, but the nations that they would have morphed into, kingdoms that they would have morphed into. One kingdom would have split up into 3 kingdoms to give you the European kingdoms as we know them. All right, follow me, good family. This is beautiful. So although everyone may not be comfortable with prophecy, although everyone may not be comfortable with seeing, history fulfilled with something written in the Bible, this is just clear cut. And again, any encyclopedia will give you the different dates and time when these different kingdoms were, the Babylon and Medo-Persia and Greece and Rome, and how they overthrew one another and what time and who was the ruler at the time. History highlights this. And it just so happens that Daniel's prophecy is very, very on time with this history. Good, fair enough. Even if you may believe that Daniel's prophecy was written after the history was done and they just make it seem as if, well, it's still in line. And it's more than that, because that prophecy of Daniel went all the way up to the King of Kings. And when the King of Kings sat, when the Ancient of Days sat, that was written already. All right, good. So again, this is as simple as I think we can put this thing, this is not really hard to comprehend, family. Very simple. When these kingdoms of Rome, remember Rome is Europe now. We come to comprehend that. Not Rome in Italy, Italy was a part of Rome. Italy was a small part of Rome. Italy was 1/10 of Rome. But now Rome has become a little part of Italy. But the Rome is the kingdoms of Europe. Simple as simple can be. And again, the previous programs, we don't want to try to go over them, but we gave you at least the list of the different nations today that would have been the kingdoms of the old. The Franks is France, and the Angles is England. I think the Burgundies would be Italy. And I showed you also that there are 3 kingdoms that were destroyed totally: the Heruli, the Ostrogoths, and the Vandals. So they're not anybody today. So from the remaining kingdoms of old Rome came Europe today. It is as simple as that. Now again, if we are looking at some spooky, fantastic thing coming out of the sky, then we would not understand. We ourselves would have fallen for the trap, not seeing the reality of God in flesh. God in flesh doesn't mean God is a human being and full stop, It means that the godly stuff and the prophecies of God is as real can get. In front of your face, on time, flesh and blood. Listen to the sound. I see it over there. That's how real it is. So I don't want to even try to take the time now to show you the gravity of what was taking place when World War I and World War II raised their heads in the world. And remember, this is the time not only when the kingdoms fell, this is the time of the rising of the King of Kings. And it is as dramatic as the scripture would put it. Believe me, it is as dramatic as any holy writings will speak of the coming of the Messiah. Because now, when I said Haile Selassie crushed Freemasonry, I don't know if everyone was listening good to where we were. I was speaking of the stone. Now, the stone that came out of the mountain without hands, sounds like a lot better. This stone hit the 10 toes. Get my point, family. The stone crushed the 10 toes, and the whole statue fell. Now, if I am saying that the 10 toes represents Europe in general, and that's not my philosophy alone, a lot of people think this. People that are outside of Rastafari, people that are not in the so-called conscious realms, people that are not even Adventists, people that just check prophecy, strongly believe in this philosophy of Rome, the ancient Rome. Number one, the 10 toes being the kingdom of Rome. And that is so, I mean, that's undeniable. And again, these are the kingdoms that became the Europeans today. That's all. Nothing hard to believe in that. And according to the prophecy, a stone supposed to come out of a mountain and crush them 10 toes. So if I am saying, I want you to listen to family. If I am saying that Haile Selassie is the stone, and the European nations, which I highlighted to be represented by the League of Nations. If the League of Nations is the 10 toes, if they represent them, the 10 toes, because that's who they are or who they were, who can deny this? The League of Nations. 1919, the League of Nations was formed primarily of European nations. The 10 toes. The 10 toes had a war amongst themselves. The toes were fighting amongst themselves. They called it World War I. At the time before they started to fight again, it was called the Great War. And then the 10 toes decided, some toes get bust up and all sorts of things. They say, hey, listen, if we're gonna keep doing this, the statue will not be able to walk anymore. So they formed the League of Toes, the League of Nations. That's just reality. Just follow it, good family. If you are honest within yourself, you can see exactly what I'm saying. It's not hard to see. I think I'm just kind of bringing it in for those who purposely don't want to see, because they got some of them doing that. They just don't want. I don't know why they be listening to this, but they don't want to learn nothing. Sometimes I honestly hope they're paid good, eh? Yeah. So the stone now is the King of Kings. Remember in Daniel 7, who can deny me? I beheld after he highlighted the beast, he said, I beheld until the thrones were cast down. That's from World War I, the thrones them start to cast down. And then the Ancient of Days did sit. The Ancient of Days in Daniel 7 is the same stone in Daniel 2. That's simple. The stone crushed the toes. So if Haile Selassie is the stone, because he surely is the Ancient of Days, and the kingdoms fell because all these European nations were once kingdoms. When did that change? Somewhere between World War I and World War II. And I beheld until all the thrones were cast down. Remember the reason why Daniel have to show you the thrones were cast down, because these nations began as kingdoms, the kingdoms of Rome. And then the Ancient of Days did sit. So when did the stone now, the Ancient of Days, crush the toes? And let me say this before we go to the crushing. I will be the first to admit that when we said that the King of Kings would have crushed Freemasonry, maybe I should have taken time to explain that in more detail. But then again, you see, we would have done several programs highlighting Haile Selassie's connection with the Freemasonic order. Another thing I don't want to even try to go into the depths of right now. In fact, I would encourage anyone to visit our website, priestisaacinstitute.com. And in the area entitled Shop Products, you find our webinars. One of our webinars is Haile Selassie, Rastafari, and Freemasonry. I would encourage everyone to get a copy of that right on our website. The link is in the description below the video. And then if not, you could just type that up, Haile Selassie and Freemasonry, and on our YouTube channel, and at least 2 or 3, I think, videos will come up. You can at least listen to those and get a bit of the realms. But trust me, the webinar, which is the ceiling one that we would have done, the more previous one that we would have done, to me, that's the most in-depth one. But the point is that with understanding Rastafari, again, we use these terms loosely. I would be the first to admit that, because that's what we spoke about in some of these documentaries, Freemasonry. I also said, when I made the statement on the program, I said Haile Selassie crushed the Illuminati as well. I said that. I don't know if one remember all of that. So let us get the words correct now. Now, Masonry, Freemasonry, these are seen as different things. Again, we would have covered all of this. And of course, Illuminati, but they have many different organizations, most really, that is somewhat connected to Freemasonry in general. Illuminati is just one of them, you know. And of course, there would be this argument that quote-unquote Masonry is an ancient African art. We ain't fighting over that. Again, when you listen to our webinars or even the programs we would have done on the subject, we balance it out properly. So we don't leave you with any gaps in your thoughts. We understand that what is called Masonry is I would consider a shallow expression of the connection to the heavens. That's why they refer to the God as the great architect, the first carpenter. That's why Christ is a carpenter, the great architect, not a mason, but a carpenter. These are symbolic terms, really, you understand. But in the same way, the hurricane would mimic the black hole and the spiral of the galaxy. And of course, the petals of the flowers and the atom and the solar system, and as above, so below. There are many things below that you can see being mirrored above. That is why in Masonry, you have this great, thing about building the building to align with this rising of this star, to align with the solstices, to align with the equinoxes. All of these Masonic buildings, they're built like that. To align with Mars when it does this and does that, to align with Venus at this time of the year. That's how these Masonic buildings, and when I say buildings, from schools, universities, churches, what else you have? A lot of these clubs. I didn't even mention the lodges. The Masonic lodge is not the only Masonic lodge. A cathedral is a Masonic lodge without a doubt. A courtroom is a Masonic lodge, depending on where you are, the police station or the parliament. All of this stuff is Masonry. Do you understand? Okay. But again, we haven't gone into any depths by just running through this quickly, but it's just to kind of free up the mind so you don't get shackled down with these terms and who Freemasonry, the devil, and no. Take your time. Take your time. That's why even in the conscious community, you have many of our elders that tell you that they are Masons of MP Hall Masonry or Prince Hall Masonry, pardon me, or many ones consider, because Masonry is an African thing. You have the Black Masons of California, the Black Masons of Harlem. So it's not something that everyone may dismiss. So again, but without a doubt, you see what has happened is that white supremacy let me say it again, white supremacy, or what appears to be white supremacy, because it's not really supreme, you know. You just kind of have a hands up right now, but so-called white supremacy, for the most part, especially in its organized sense, is Masonry, without a doubt. Without a doubt. So that is why even the art gets a bad name. That is why even the craft gets a funny kind of sour name, because white supremacy, which is the devil itself, white supremacy in its organized state, and most of it is organized. Very little of it is just scattershot. Most of it is organized. It's a system. You know, hear how they talk, the judicial system, the executive wing, the other wing, whatever that is, the legislature, all of these well-organized Masonry. And yes, they would have stolen a lot of the concept from our ancient African governmental system. I definitely agree with that. Obviously, I teach that. And that itself, follow me good, that itself has its own level of secret science. That's why Christ is the carpenter. You get me good? Good. So what they are taking already is filled with science, esoteric science, deeper than what they're giving you, much deeper. Yeah, man, the 33, 32 degrees business. No, man, it's 360 degrees they came and met. Some scholars say 720 degrees, 2 circles. So what they saw, the science they saw, the depths of the glyphs, the hieroglyphs, and the meduneter that they saw was much deeper than the Masonic stuff they're talking about. But that is what they stole, watered down, and not only watered down, but vilified, adding the little the devil ingredients into it, basically. That is why you get now all of these, what do you call these organizations, the Bilderbergs, and CFR, and Red Cross, and just a whole system of governance across the earth, educational systems, health systems, all of them wrapped in Masonry. So that's why the health system now itself, you see the symbol of the snake and the wings. These are ancient African Kemetic symbols from the ancient African Kemetic who dealt with esoteric secret science. But now the wicked would have come and stole it from Imhotep, and then talk about Hippocrates, and then hang up the snake with the wings and tell you this is medicine, and that is Freemasonry. So this is deep, is the whole system. And white supremacy now, white supremacy for sure is Masonry, Freemasonry, to be honest. And I hope you are understanding and comprehending what I'm saying. Good. So when the 10 toes now gathered in Geneva, I'm talking about the League of Nations, when the 10 toes gathered to crush the children of the Most High, as the book of Daniel says, a stone came out of the mountains. The mountains the stone came from, the mountains. Where is the mountains, man? Ethiopia, and the stone crushed the 10 toes. Now again, if you're looking for something spooky, you're not gonna see the reality of what took place geopolitically in history. If you're looking for some weird thing to come out of the sky, some religious stuff, that is why you may refer to what I'm talking about here as foolishness. But let us see who's the real fool now, because we're talking reality. When, come on, don't we understand? Maybe we don't comprehend it. The atrocity of the transatlantic slave trade, etc. When you really comprehend, again, the organized kidnapping of a people, and then the forced removal from their native land, and of course, the forced removal of name, identity, language, and etc. As we mentioned, language, etc. That's not Africa, etc. What does it mean, man? How you spell that? ETC. Imagine that. So, when you remove a people from their origin, totally rip them from where they are, who they are, and bring them to something totally new. And this totally new stuff is filled with violence. You set up a wall and call the place Wall Street and start to auction off the Negroes. Cotton and cane, they picking, plantation style. Sun up till sundown. And cornmeal porridge and breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and whatever the masters throw away. Out the back door, they go and grabble it up and make some sort of delicacy for themselves. All of this was well organized. People that went through this for hundreds of years. And those that orchestrated this, they've been doing this for a while. Oh yeah, man, they've been doing this for a while. Even before they came on the grand kidnapping, when they came to the West, they tried a thing on the Indians, as they call them, the Caribs and the Arawaks and all of these different ones. Then they worked them to death. They killed them out. Columbus and Cortez, they killed them out. And then have a nerve to lie in the history book and tell people that the Arawaks were eaten by the Caribs. The Caribs were savages, and they ate the Arawaks. So who ate the Caribs then? There hardly any of them around. I mean, just a pack of lies. This is white supremacy in action. I can tell you, even when Abraham Lincoln decided out of the goodness of his heart to free the so-called slaves, that was white supremacy at work. Chess being played on us. That's why in chess, the white has the first move. Chess being played on the slaves. 22nd of September, that was just 2 days ago. 1962, that's when that was announced, the proclamation of Emancipation Proclamation. And it came into effect on the 1st of January, 63. So when the King of Kings set up the OAU in 1963, that's exactly 100 years after the Emancipation Proclamation in the United States of America. And I don't have to explain how a system would have gripped on to the so-called newly freed slaves up to a day like today and hold them down, whether it's through taxes, mortgage, and all these different things. But let me show you, this is very deep, that when the League of Nations gathered themselves together, that was not just to make sure that they didn't fight amongst themselves again. That was to ensure that they had full control of the world. Now, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to give you an audio. The video is up as well too. But I'm just giving you the audio here of that documentary entitled The Lion of Judah. Many of you know the documentary. And a few things was said in this documentary that I want to highlight before I continue. The Lion of Judah documentary goes into Haile Selassie.
Of his life. But almost immediately, he was embroiled in the outcome of the other war in Europe. At the Versailles Peace Conference, in their victory, the Allies again redrew the map of Africa. But once more, Ethiopia escaped. Playing off the great powers against each other, Rastafari kept his independence. Joining the new League of Nations, he put his faith in the latest post-war watchword, collective security.
Okay, hold that. Now, here we said good enough. Now remember in 1884, 1885, they have that, the Berlin Conference. And these killers here have Africa cut up like a pie. You remember that? Have Africa cut up like a piece of cake. And this fella say taking this piece, and the other fella say they're taking the other piece, and everybody having a scrumptious time. But because of the might of Ethiopia, we all know that we would withstood the wicked. Those of you who would have checked the documentary, A Petty Mech, you have a clear understanding of what we're talking about. But then now, after they failed to do that and they ran into their own world war, that's World War I, they came out again and decided that, listen, we got to band together. If it's one thing with these toes, we got to band together to make sure we rule the world. Now, this documentary is a BBC documentary that you're listening to. It's not designed to make Haile Selassie look good, I'm telling you, because it has some pockets of propaganda in there. You all know it. But yet still it has some reality in there as it relates to the truth in history. Now listen good again. This is not me speaking, eh?
But in the end, the man who rode back to Addis Ababa in triumph was Rastafari. It was a victory that he still recalls as the turning point of his life.
Now listen, hear this.
But almost immediately, he was embroiled in the outcome of the other war in Europe.
Almost immediately, he was embroiled in the outcome of the other war in Europe. As they say in World War I. The winners now.
At the Versailles Peace Conference in their victory, the Allies again redrew the map of Africa.
After their victory, the Allies again redrew the map of Africa. So they just done World War I. White supremacy we talking about here. The same people that enslave Africa. White supremacy. And again in their organized state, Masons for sure, Illuminati, you can go on and on. And at this peace conference, they redrew the map of Africa again. And once more, Ethiopia escaped. And this time, the escape wasn't like before, because the other time they map out a piece of Ethiopia for themselves, you know, but they just could not get it. But this time, they came up in their face early and bright, where they have to say, okay, no, Ethiopia, you safe, you're a member of the League of Nations. Although white supremacy had in their mind to do some dastardly deed in a few years. They were just playing chess, but they didn't realize, or they did, but maybe they just were losing it. The master chess player was there, the great architect himself. Hear this, no man.
But almost immediately, he was embroiled in the outcome of the other war in Europe. At the Versailles Peace Conference, in their victory, the Allies again redrew the map of Africa.
You see?
But once more, Ethiopia escaped.
Once more, Ethiopia escaped. How he escaped? He jumped through the window? How did Ethiopia escape?
Playing off the great powers against each other, Rastafari kept his independence.
Played off. You see? You see how the king moved? Playing off the great powers against each other. You think it's now the king doing that? Even when 1940, when Britain came in with the Allies to run out Mussolini, playing off the great powers against one another. Haile Selassie kept his independence.
Playing off the great powers against each other, Rastafari kept his independence.
Rastafari, same person.
Joining the new League of Nations, he put his faith in the latest post-war watchword.
Join in. Join in the new League of Nations. So this is why the individual that had a problem with, according to them, the foolishness that we were talking about, was making some sort of comment about Haile Selassie being a part of them. You see, this is the thing. This, just like many Ethiopians at the time, the moves that the king would have made, many ones didn't understand. And even today, looking at the history, many ones still don't comprehend. I was watching a video. You ever see this video? No easy walk. It's no easy walk. It's no easy walk. Yeah. It's no easy walk to freedom. That video there. How many of you have seen that video there? Hey, they have a man in that video, an Ethiopian patriot. God bless him. This man old and elder now, you know. Well, at the time of the video. This is, the video must be, I think they did it either in the 90s or the late 80s or the 90s. That's when they did this video here. And you know, in this video, this Ethiopian patriot saying that, you know what I mean, it was a shameful thing for Haile Selassie to leave Ethiopia during the time of the invasion, you know? And he's saying it with sincerity, like many of us. We thought that he would stay and fight with us. We never thought that he would have deserted us. It was a very shameful thing to do. Never before in the history of Ethiopia have an emperor. And you know, you go on and I listening to the fella and I say, okay, here it is. Before the outcome, I mean, maybe I could understand how you feel. Because again, yeah, I mean, yeah, the emperor is not known to leave the battlefield, etc., etc. All right. But I mean, I don't think there's any emperor on the battlefield like Negus and Agas. But anyway, all right, fair enough. You yourself, even in your speech, insinuating that, man, he should have stayed and die on the battlefield. So you already get the idea that, listen, that was a losing battle. The emperor leave Ethiopia and come back and crush Italy. And not only crush Italy, you know, the aftermath. We have decades of rulership after that now, where the king established Ethiopia on all angles, from every direction, modernization and ensuring the ancient culture is kept. And this man lived through all of that. And he see the results of the emperor going before the League of Nations. He see the results of the king coming back and destroying Italy. And what would have happened if he, the emperor, did stay and it didn't go the way that history would have made sure that it went? The OAU established, the universities established, the Haile Selassie and the United Nations and all of this. And this man, even after now, even after the whole Derg and everything, this man have the nerve to sit and say, it was a shameful thing that he did. He couldn't believe that's what he did. History will remember him for that. Of course, you better believe history will remember him for that. I want to go around with that, man. With all due respect to the elder, you know. So I'm just showing you how stiff-necked some people are, to the point that you see the results of his move and you still, you know, you're so deep in your political outlook, because a lot of us in this conscious realms, we're very political. That is why there's anybody that's always watching and following someone just to disagree with them is politics. The same individual that called VAC, whatever that stands for, this same individual that called my comments foolishness. Several times they're making a heap of comments in the chat and then they delete all. Now, what kind of behavior is that? I don't know them personally and I don't want to disrespect them, but anybody that moving so something not too right, straight up. You can see there's an irritance there. That's like troubled soul. You just keep writing comments and deleting them quick. What is that? What mentality is that? So, and again, I mean, if you don't understand, you don't understand, but to refer to what we talking about as foolishness. So all you hear so far, that's foolishness? You're serious? Give me a listen. The scripture show you that Christ went to hell to rob the key out of the devil's hand. I wonder if you comprehend. So what was sitting before the King of Kings when he addressed the League of Nations was white supremacy in its fullness. White supremacy in its what you would call most organized state at the time. So in other words, the individual represented the same individuals that would have enslaved the African people hundreds of years ago. They represent the same individuals that would have colonialized them just decades prior to that. They represent the same people that pretend that they released them, but still keeping them under neo-colonialism and even neo-slavery. That is what's taking place. So when the European League of Nations now gathered together in Geneva, I don't mean when Haile Selassie spoke to them, I mean in general, that was white supremacy in its governing sense, on its mission to rule the world with an iron fist. And let me show you something. Although we speak of white supremacy today, any spiritual person can see that if Haile Selassie I was not in the picture, this would be a different world today. And that is why, even though it appears as if the evil and the beast has a power that is prolonging, it is only prolonging for those who do not understand that the Messiah would have arrived. And that's the whole vibes of the scripture too, you know. That is why ones would say, but listen, if Christ come to do this and do that, how he come and gone and it's still going on? It's going on for those who didn't catch the vision. Those who have eyes will see. Those who have ears will hear. Listen to me good, no man. Remember they tell Christ, but hey, if you are the Christ, John the Baptist was supposed to come back. John the Baptist don't come back yet. That's what they're telling him, you know. John the Baptist don't come back yet. And he tell them, John the Baptist come and gone. Huh? John the Baptist come and gone. Marcus Garvey, man. Because that's what they were telling the Christ in the Bible. Elijah was supposed to come back. So if you're the Christ, where's the Elijah? And he had to tell them, John the Baptist is the same Elijah. Now I want you to listen to this, good family. I want you to hear this good. This is very, very important.
An embargo on arms sales to both sides. For Italy, with us. But for Haile Selassie,
listen to this statement here.
But for Haile Selassie, the final betrayal came at the League of Nations.
Betrayal.
Pierre Laval, the French foreign minister, and Sir Samuel Hoare for Britain, proposed to hand part of Ethiopia to Mussolini. Appeasement had triumphed. Collective security was a myth. In the war that followed, Haile Selassie had no chance. Forty years earlier, Haile Selassie's father had helped Menelik to beat the Italians at Adwa. Now Mussolini's troops had their revenge. Within a month, Ethiopia's first capital at Aksum had fallen, and over 2,000 years of independence were nearly at an end. Abandoned by his international friends, Haile Selassie found even his own men unwilling to fight on. He had only a handful of trained troops. The rest were untrained tribal warriors, hopelessly outgunned. Before the Italian assault, the emperor's army disintegrated, and at Easter 1936, Haile Selassie left his men to make a pilgrimage to the rock churches of Lalibela and to pray for his country. His steady empire, the train from Selassie followed them. He left behind...
Ladies and gentlemen, the second speaker on the list is His Majesty Nicholas Haile Selassie, Speaker on...
to confront his betrayers at the League of Nations.
Now hear that. He's going to confront his betrayers at the League of Nations.
Ladies and gentlemen, the second speaker on the list is His Majesty Nicholas Haile Selassie. I call upon...
He did so with a dignity that has become a legend.
Monsieur le Président, Monsieur le...
The jeers of fascists in the gallery did not stop him. I am here to claim justice, he said. What reply shall I take back to my people?
Listen to this.
There was no answer, and there could be none. The League was dead.
Listen.
So, said the Emperor, it is us today. It will be you tomorrow.
Okay, now, there's another aspect of this I want to get into. And for me to get into that, I have to clarify this without prolonging it too much longer. Because you see, what's happening here, these are things that, with all due respect to those who may be just coming in for the first time, but these are things we talk about more time, because it's Haile Selassie we deal with. So, the address to the League of Nations, even the scriptures that align with it, and all of these things, most of us know exactly what's happening here. This is not a feel-good thing. We don't come here just to preach to the choir and all of that kind of stuff. But let's be clear here. Even the point that we want to make tonight, maybe we're fashioning it in a different way, because it's a very important point. And when you understand the point, you wouldn't be saying Haile Selassie crushed Freemasonry's foolishness. Okay. Is there any sensible person that cannot see that this is white supremacy at its worst? That is why Mussolini, that is why, as they said, the League, Samuel Hoare, and Pierre Laval, Britain and France were looking to hand Ethiopia over to Italy on a silver platter. I don't think many of us understand what Haile Selassie went through in exile. That's why we need to read the king's autobiography. And all the nations, the members that betrayed Ethiopia. Down to the very last drop when the emperor had to write to the Archbishop of Canterbury, and the emperor got assistance from, you know, Black Americans that understood the plight because of the teachings of Marcus Mosiah Garvey, the thing heavy. So white supremacy was coming down on the world. Have we forgotten that all the African countries were done with already? That was it, you know. That was it, you know. It was one more country to lock, and we done. We missed this point. If Ethiopia would have lost that war, this would not be the world that you know today. I am positive. I am supremely positive. It doesn't mean that evil is not around. It doesn't mean that Masonry is not around. It doesn't mean that white supremacy is not around, man. They just kill another black youth there in America, the cops and they drag somebody off of a truck the other. I mean, white supremacy is alive and there. What are you talking about? Freemasonry? We all know that. But again, for the spiritualists, those of you who are spiritual, you understand spiritual things. And that is why there is a Messiah. That is why there is a Savior. That is why when the Ancient of Days did sit, one like the Son of Man came unto him, and he was given a kingdom of which we are a part of as Bobo Shanti. He was given a kingdom and dominion and power. We better take them power, you know. We better take the dominion that we've been given. I'm very serious, Rastafari. So that is why, although the beast, the scripture says so, he beheld until the body of the beast had a time to prolong, just for a little time. A little time, maybe a couple of generations, but the beast had a little time to prolong. That's what's happening here. Prolonged time. I like to liken it to when a supermarket is closed. Have you ever been in a supermarket when it's time for the supermarket to close? You hear the one come over the telecom, will you please complete your shopping? The supermarket is about to be closed. So if the supermarket's supposed to close at 9 o'clock, that means those who come to the supermarket at 9 o'clock, unless you have some special relationship with the security at the door, you're not getting in the supermarket. But there are people inside the supermarket, you know, still picking up goods. There are people still in the shopping line. The cashier is still working, and it's after 9. The supermarket has officially closed. Nobody else coming in. But yet still, it's prolonging for a little time while we make sure everyone gets their goods, cash, and out of the supermarket. So although it closed, it not really closed yet. And it's the same thing. So that's why I like to remind people, you know, when we talk about, like what we're talking about now with Haile Selassie, etc., that ain't no long time story. That's our time. When I was born, Rastafari, when I was conceived, for sure, when I was conceived, Haile Selassie I did not disappear as yet. I was conceived in 1975. I was conceived before the news said that Haile Selassie has gone missing. You follow what I'm saying? So it's not no distant thing for me. We are right in the time of this. So even though the supermarket closed at 9, those who are still inside the supermarket can still run to aisle 17 and pick up a bag of flour quickly and get to the cashier, because you still have a little time. And this grace period of little time now, again, you are still sheltered under the umbrella of the salvation order.
that was brought to you by the same Ancient of Days. That is why the Ancient of Days that sat again gave power to one like unto the Son of Man that was brought unto him. The Son of Man that was brought unto him is the same Lamb in Revelation chapter 5 that was brought to the lion, because they got the same thing, a kingdom and dominion and power ever living. And the amount of angels that were present in both Daniel 7 and Revelation 5 is the same amount of angels, 1,000 times 10,000 times thousands of thousands, something like that. But you get the point. This is beautiful, eh? So when Haile Selassie stood before the League of Nations, this is scripture. When it says the Lord shall gather all nations, that's it there. Nations don't mean everybody in the world standing up at the same time hearing God's voice come out of the sky. That's the problem. This was televised, you know. This is not something we read about in a book. We see it on TV. Cameras were taking pictures. Today now they're showing it to you in color. And we see Haile Selassie give the speech before the League of Nations, before the representatives of the 10 toes. You hear what the narrator say?
I am here to claim justice, he said. What reply shall I take back to my people? There was no answer, and there could be none. The League was dead.
There was no answer, and there could be none. The 10 toes was dead. He just said that. The League of Nations was dead. What are you talking about? As simple as that was said. That is so real. You know why? Because the defunct League of Nations, remember, it was the same members of this defunct body that went into World War II. I don't think we understand it. That when World War II really kicked off, Ethiopia was already out of that, building back. When Europe and the same England, you know, the same England and Britain, I should say, that came into Ethiopia, with Haile Selassie I, they got some serious blows in World War II. That's why England and London and these places, London specifically, I should say, was almost decimated. Buildings with all the holes in them. Look at some of these old war movies. Europe was in shambles, Europe was in shambles after World War II. And their plan of complete world dominance, as they thought, was not achieved. Because they could not hold on to that last African country, which was Ethiopia. And in the scramble to get Ethiopia by trickery and hypocrisy, they self-destruct. What do you call it? Implode, when they explode from inside. The League was dead. The man just said so. The League was dead. Who killed the League? The League was dead. How did the League die? After Haile Selassie speak to the League was dead. The stone that came out of the Simeon Mountains, formed without hands, crushed the 10 toes at the League of Toes, and the statue came crumbling down. Well, yeah, but today, up to today, you still have the white supremacy. You still have the supermarket is closed at 9 o'clock. Please, shoppers, get all the items you need now and straight away go to the nearest cashier. The supermarket is officially closed. I am positive that what you consider white supremacy, its system, cannot last forever. Which kingdom has lasted forever, Rasta? You expect Santa Claus to be coming around every end of the year forever? That must stop. And it may sound strange to some may consider it foolishness. But an economic system has to crumble for you to stop seeing Santa Claus. Remember, Santa Claus is money, eh? Easter Bunny is money, eh? All of these holidays is about money. Halloween is money, eh? They work with a system, an economic system. And when the economic system comes to a halt, which is already there, when Haile Selassie I, remember Kennedy, John F. Kennedy was attempting to make the US dollar backed by silver again. That's one of the reasons they took him out. The same US dollar was backed by silver and gold. Now, it's as if the US dollar, which is worthless, being printed every day, is the standard of all the currency of the world. All economies lean on the US dollar and compare themselves to the US dollar. So money in general now is a real worthless commodity. Intrinsic value, it's called. Yeah, it's worth what we think it's worth. If they say we're using stones for money, we'll get the best stones. But paper is paper. You see, all of this is a part of white supremacy. All of this is a part of the Freemasonry. In God we trust. We're not getting this. We're looking for religion. So when I make a statement like Haile Selassie crush Freemasonry, crush the Illuminati, and crush white supremacy, some, I do say, they say fool, would refer to what I am saying as foolishness because they don't understand. And nothing wrong if you don't understand, but humble yourself and ask politely. You hear what the man say?
What reply shall I take back to my people? There was no answer.
Why?
And there could be none.
Huh?
The League was dead.
The League was dead. The toes, remember the League is the European, the toes were crushed. And then what happened after that? The Ancient of Days did sit. So I can't get too spooky with this. This is as real can be. And my brother and sisters, whoever, whatever, I mean, the spookism is not a part of my expression at all. Now, I want you to hear this. This is John Perkins, Confession of an Economic Hitman. Listen to this.
We economic hitmen really have been the ones responsible for creating this first truly global empire. And we work many different ways. But perhaps the most common is that we will identify a country that has resources our corporations covet, like oil, and then arrange a huge loan to that country from the World Bank or one of its sister organizations. But the money never actually goes to the country. Instead, it goes to our big corporations to build infrastructure projects in that country, power plants, industrial parks, ports, things that benefit a few rich people in that country, in addition to our corporations, but really don't help the majority of the people at all. However, those people, the whole country is left holding a huge debt. It's such a big debt they can't repay it, and that's part of the plan, that they can't repay it. And so at some point, we economic hitmen go back to them and say, listen, you lost a lot of money, can't pay your debt, so sell your oil real cheap to our oil companies. Allow us to build a military base in your country, or send troops in support of ours to someplace in the world like Iraq, or vote with us on the next UN vote. To have their electric utility company privatized and their water and sewage system privatized and sold to U.S. corporations or other multinational corporations. So there was that whole mushrooming thing, and it's so typical of the way the IMF and the World Bank work. They put a country in debt, it's such a big debt it can't pay it, and then you offer to refinance that debt and pay even more interest. And you demand this quid pro quo, which you call a conditionality or good governance, which means basically that they've got to sell off their resources, including many of their social services, their utility companies, their school systems sometimes, their penal systems, their insurance systems to foreign corporations. So it's a double, triple, quadruple whammy.
No. Again, I just want us to take this in now. This is John Perkins. I'm sure many of you would have come across. We ourselves would have covered, the economic hitman, And basically, in a nutshell, if you didn't pick up everything he's saying there, he was a part of the CIA spies, operatives, basically. And he would have gone in himself. He was an economic hitman. That's the title. He would have gone into countries all over the world, Africa, South America, primarily Asia, and especially countries that have wealth and minerals and a certain level of resources that they could use. The USA, by the way. And basically they would just encourage, as he's saying, the leader to, hey, just toe the road, man, toe the line. Just, hey, it's all right. I know you want to hold, the wealth for your people and all of that good jazz, but that's not in style today. That's not the bling. We can make you and your family rich. You just work with us. And here how you work with them, they're going to give you money. Wow. I said, yeah, we're going to lend you plenty of money. And as the hitman was saying there a while ago, the money doesn't even go to the country. It goes into building infrastructure and businesses for the US businesses, for the United States of America, basically. Their interests, I should say. And only a few people, he made mention of this, only a few of the rich people in the country, whatever country it may be, will benefit. So somebody there is going to benefit. More than likely, the head of the country going to make a little piece of change too. But the people are not going to feel it at all. So that's why the international IMF, and of course the World Bank and these ones there, that's really what they do, yeah? Yeah. Freemasonry. Illuminati again. All of the good word, white supremacy. The banking system is white supremacy. The education system is white supremacy. I'm just trying to show you all of this. And Perkins, who's really, I must say, one of the freshest breath air. That's the right term. A breath of fresh air, really. That's what I'm saying. One of the freshest breaths that we would have received in a while, in the sense of the depths of what he's talking about, of which we would have known, but an insider coming out and clarifying this, and he's been doing this for a while now, decades now. I've heard, it's over almost 20 years since I saw him on Democracy Now! I think that's one of the earlier programs of Democracy Now!, where he was speaking of his book, Confessions of an Economic Hitman. So basically that's it. He goes into a country and say, hey, listen, man, oil, gold, diamond, river, water, what else? You have it, bauxite, coltan, cassiterite, you know what I'm saying? Right. So all of this plan, you have to make sure everybody's happy. That doesn't work, No, that doesn't work. Our economy is crumbling, and we got to do what we got to do to keep ourselves alive. So if you want to save yourself and your children and your wife and your mommy and your papi, just work with us. I can't promise you a village, but at least the people that live in your house, you're okay. and some of your ministers can profit too. That's what it is. And if the leader is going to say, well, no, I'm not into that. You don't hear what Perkins say? Say, well, you sure, brother? I mean, I like you, man, but you can't, trust me, man, it's not going to work out good for you. It's all right. And Perkins go home and tell him, well, another one bites the dust. And they go and kill him. They go and overthrow the government, lock him up, something just to make him move. And the harder he pretends he doesn't want to move is the harder he will die. Are you following me? And Perkins is saying they went all over the world with this kind of stuff. So what about Ethiopia? I'm asking. When you hear Perkins speak of the situations in Panama, Nicaragua, Iran, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, he's speaking of the time when Ethiopia was the Ethiopia we know, with Haile Selassie I. And remember, we're talking about geopolitics here now. We're talking about international affairs. We're talking about World Bank affairs. We're talking about military. We're talking about commerce. We're talking about embargoes, if possible, if needed, from the outlook of the wicked. And sanctions, that's the world they live in. All of these things we're talking about. And assassination, coup d'etat. Where was the King of Kings in all of this? Listen to this.
The precedent for economic hitmen really began back in the early 50s when democratically elected Mossadegh, who was elected in Iran, he was considered to be the hope for democracy in the Middle East and around the world. He was Time Magazine's Man of the Year. But one of the things that he'd run on and began to implement was the idea that foreign oil companies needed to pay the Iranian people a lot more for the oil that they were taking out of Iran. The Iranian people should benefit from their own oil. Strange policy. We didn't like that, of course. But we were afraid to do what we normally were doing, which was to send in the military. Instead, we sent in one CIA agent, Kermit Roosevelt, Teddy Roosevelt's relative. And Kermit went in with a few $1 million and was very, very effective and efficient. And in a short amount of time, he managed to get Mossadegh overthrown and brought in the Shah of Iran to replace him, who always was favorable to oil. And it was extremely effective.
Mobs overflow Tehran. Army officers shout that Mossadegh has surrendered and his regime as virtual dictator of Iran is ended. Pictures of the Shah are paraded through the streets as sentiment reverses. The Shah is welcomed home.
So back here in the United States, in Washington, people looked around and said, wow, that was easy and cheap. So this established a whole new way of manipulating countries, of creating empire. The only problem with Roosevelt was that he was a card-carrying CIA agent, and had he been caught, the ramifications could have been pretty serious. So very quickly at that point, the decision was made to use private consultants to channel the money through the World Bank or the IMF or one of the other such agencies, to bring in people like me who worked for private companies, so that if we got caught, there would be no governmental ramifications.
Okay. Now, just in the interest of time, I'm going to look to seal this up now. Just give me a few moments. Listen, the brother goes into Iran, Guatemala, Honduras, etc. Now, he just mentioned Iran, and he's saying that Iran was almost like the pilot project for all of this economic hitman kind of stuff. 1953. Again, you got to study geopolitics properly. This is why I'm asking where the king fit in here. So all of these countries where you have revolutionary leaders, that's why the revolutionary leaders always have a hard time. There are very few revolutionary leaders that really stick out to almost the very end. You can mention Fidel Castro, even Libya there, Gaddafi, no matter how they said he came to an end, you know, several times they tried to assassinate Gaddafi, at least 15 times, some heap of times, Castro too. About 9 times they tried to assassinate Fidel Castro. So I'm just trying to show you that what Perkins is saying is reality. That it is only obvious that a kingdom that is supposedly on top wants to stay on top and is made up of the wickedest set of people ever, white supremacy. And they're going to very craftily do their best to stay on top by using other people's resources. So if they have to send in missionaries to pretend that they are nice, they will do that. So Perkins now again is like a negotiator. He comes to make sure that you, the leader of the country, you are ready to cooperate with the US of A. And if you have any ideas of helping your people, we will take care of you. But it was not so with Haile Selassie. You go and read Perkins' book. You listen to any interview that Perkins gives and see if he said anything about Haile Selassie I bowing to them. What I know, there was an attempt coup in 1960, because you got to keep in mind, they're going to make sure that if you don't go their way, they're going to try their best to take you out. And it was obvious that Haile Selassie I was on the straight and narrow. No sellout. No turning his back on his people. That was already proven from even the time of the Italian-Ethiopian War. Do you know that once came to the emperor from the Italian government to the British government and other governments trying to sell out the King of Kings? Even down to the point where Italy said they will give him this position in his own government and he'll get a holiday home in Rome. You crazy. And to prove this point, you just heard Perkins say that they were the one that established the Shah of Iran in 53. Now remember, the Shah of Iran had this big party where he crowned himself King of Kings. Now this is a conversation I would have had with my good brother Bingy Mike, Ross Mike, who for some reason or the other believed that Haile Selassie's King of Kings title was something that was given to him, you know, by America and Britain. Ross Mike telling me this, eh? But of course I vehemently disagreed, because again, if they had a puppet King of Kings in Negus and Nagas, they would not have to make another King of Kings in Shah, which is the Shah of Iran. Because the Shah of Iran, without a doubt, was a puppet, not just for the USA, but for the CIA. Perkins clearly explains that. If you didn't know that, Perkins would make you know. The Shah of Iran was a puppet for the CIA. And that is why after a while, the CIA decided to crown him King of Kings. Is the CIA that crowned the Shah of Iran the King of Kings. And remember, we did a video, you can check it on YouTube. You should watch these videos when these are done. The video is entitled, Who is the King of Glory? You watch that. You get a good understanding who the King of Glory really is. Because the Shah of Iran had this great big party. Representatives from all over the world, almost every head of state was there. The emperor was there too, Haile Selassie. Can you imagine that? He gonna crown himself King of Kings, and he invite the King of Kings. But when you listen to the episode that we did on that, you could see how dynamic the presence of the King of Kings was at that event. When everybody had to bow to the Shah, the king never had to bow. The king was standing up behind him while they bowing to him. In diplomacy, the king was at the head of the table. Remember, all the other heads of states was there. And the king, Haile Selassie, Negus and Nagas, as always, was at the head of the table. He was chaperoned by the Shah, his wife. She was Haile Selassie's chaperone, and that's just a symbol. Remember, all the heads of state were there, So the highest head of state will be chaperoned by the host wife. That's just diplomacy. So it's obvious who the highest head of state was. Prince Philip was there. Britain was represented. And the Shah was crowning himself King of Kings. What kind of thing is that? And everybody there, Prince Philip, everybody had to bow to him except the real Negus and Nagas, the real King of Kings. So if Haile Selassie, the King of Kings, was under the let's say, the control of the CIA, why would the CIA have to crown a next King of Kings? And they have one already. Because Negus and Nagas is no puppet for nobody. IMF, CIA, FBI, KGB. And this has been proven in the history that the King of Kings, Negus and Nagas, would have left for us, man, even when he was in exile. Some people came and wanted him to act a movie entitled Flight by Night. And they say, if you act the movie, we're going to give you some good cheese so you could help your people in Ethiopia during the war. And although at the time, the little change would have come in handy, it would plug a hole, as we say in the Caribbean. It would have plugged a hole. The king said, no, we're not selling out our dignity for no money from nobody. Crazy. Pardon me when I say you're crazy. No. So within this, I would say, silent, humble action, you can see Haile Selassie, if you don't want to use the word crush, he definitely conquered Freemasonry and white supremacy, even in this perspective here. Because not most of them, Perkins, I don't know if I would say he was gleefully saying, but in all of his interviews, I've seen several of his interviews. Again, he speaks clearly of what he would have done and what the CIA would have done. And he called by names the leaders. He even goes as far as to say he respects Chavez. Because when they mounted the coup to take down Hugo Chavez, the people backed him so much that they had to back off. And that's why up to today, Venezuela is suffering CIA. So at a time when the economic hitman was so strong, or hitmen was so strong, the jackals, but they were working in Ethiopia, obviously, but they just could not move the King of Kings, Negus and Nagas. That is my point. So I have no apology. If VAC doesn't understand, if Garfield doesn't understand, I have no apology. I can't be upset. You can't blame me for somebody else's lack of understanding. Haile Selassie crush Freemasonry. You hear me? Haile Selassie crush white supremacy. And anybody that talking about, well, this and that's still going on, the book of Daniel said that the beast was given a little time to prolong. The supermarket is now closed. Shoppers, please get your last items and make your way to the nearest cashier. That means you better find salvation. You better get right with God. Come and do it now. Yeah, man, trust me. The kingdom that we live in and around, the education system, the so-called healthcare system, the industrial systems around us, the banking system, the economic system, man, you better believe. Not only is it deteriorating, but it's deteriorating fast. Anyway, give thanks to the life giver and the keeper of life. Give thanks to the God of gods who crush. Wait, want to tell me? I want to see the King of Kings crush colonialism. Who crushed colonialism? The God of gods crushed colonialism. Who rug off the shackles of Ghana and rug off the shackles of Togo? Do you know that the United Nations was in support of Israel's occupation of Palestine? The UN backed that. Haile Selassie was against that. Haile Selassie severed himself from the Zionists. Haile Selassie speak out strongly against apartheid when the UN wasn't doing that. Perkins know more than he's saying, eh? But he also know how much he can say. Yeah, Holy Man in the light. Selassie, Jah, Rastafari. Love, love, love.
Prosperity is a herbal remedy that has been naturally designed to nourish the prostate gland. Prosperity uses a combination of leaves, roots, and barks to create a tincture designed to nourish your prostate gland. It also will assist in prostate-related issues such as erectile dysfunction, swollen prostates, and problems related to the passage of urine. Call or WhatsApp 728-8289, 728-8289 and get your bottle today. Prosperity. Do you want an accurate natal chart reading to know the true position of the sun, the moon, and each planet at the moment that you were being born? We at the Priest Isaac's Institute of Holistic Knowledge will create a precise natal chart for you and your loved ones, coupled with snapshot pictures of each planet, the sun, the moon, plus the constellations related to them. In addition to this, we will be giving you a detailed report of the alignment of planets to the constellations and its full meaning, not from an astrological perspective, but from an ancient astronomical perspective. You will have this report for the rest of your life and can share it with your friends and your family. To order your accurate natal chart today, visit our website, priestisaacinstitute.com, or email us, priestisaacinstitute@gmail.com. Blessed.